Hey guys, Adam here. Today we're going to talk about the recently released digital rulebook for Polyversal. It is a 6 to 15 millimeter mass combat sci-fi game designed by Ken Whitehurst and published by Collins Epic Wargames, makers of Spearpoint 1943. It was launched on Kickstarter on May 2016 with an estimated delivery date of January 2017. It just delivered in December of 2019. I don't mind saying that this is one of my biggest Kickstarter regrets, as in I did not kickstart it. But now I have the rulebook, so let's take a look at it. The game itself does have a backstory, and you know it's fancy because they use an E on the end of program, but I'm not going to get into that. Let's take a look at the system itself. It is a figure agnostic game, though designed for 6 millimeter figures and for use up to 15 millimeter. But the book says you can pretty much use anything you have. You just have to write the rules for it, and we'll get into that a little later. Collins Epic Wargames has partnered with several miniature companies to provide miniatures for the forces in their own backstory, the UN and whatnot. I'm really impressed that they have mechs in this game, and that's kind of what sold me on it. They offer several different battle groups and forces for sale. In using larger scale miniatures such as 15 millimeter, it seems to be easiest to just represent them as larger vehicles in 6 millimeter scale, or just a larger representation, which means you would kind of have to scale back on your infantry, for example, either smaller amounts per base or just single figures. One of the core components of the game is the combat tile, which just gives you a breakdown of all the stats that you need for the figure that you're fielding. The miniatures you get from Collins Epic Wargames come with these, but you can also make your own through their army creation system. With a nice hexagon shape, it makes it really easy to keep them organized for quick viewing on the table. Now, these tiles just give a breakdown of the unit and its stats, but also in the top left-hand corner, it gives you the correct color of dice that you would roll, and we'll get into that more in a minute. Again, in this game, if you have miniatures that there aren't these cards for, you can use the online Force Creator in order to create them and print them out, cut them, make them look nice. The dice mechanic in this game I thought was really interesting. You have modifiers in the game, but instead of adding a plus to what you need to roll, they can modify the type of dice that you end up rolling. For example, if you would normally roll a d10 for something and you have a weapon that provides a +1 dice type bonus, it bumps it up to a d12. And the reverse of that would be like if you had you needed to roll a d6, your particular weapon rolled a d6, and you had a -2 dice type, it would drop you down to a d4, which is the smallest in the game. Now, the orders you can issue these units are pretty standard for a modern miniature combat game, with a couple of exceptions. I do like that it has Call for Fire, and I really like that it has Fire for Effect. With Call for Fire, you basically designate an observer, and they can call in remote fire to it. You know, you see this in Flames of War, but not really in a lot of other games. I really dig that part. And then Fire for Effect, which I don't think I've seen in any other system. Just, you really let that enemy unit have it. Another interesting aspect of the system is the psychological profiles. This is basically leadership in other systems, but in building your armies, this kind of equates to modifiers. For example, like if you have a mercenary, he's cheaper. He's 15% cheaper, because he's just hired. And if a lot of his guys start dying, maybe he decides the money isn't worth it. However, if you have a robot, well, he's not afraid of anything. And all this is factored into the cost of your units as you build your army lists. The game consists of 5 phases, in which you issue orders, determine initiative, and then you activate units within command range, and then your phase ends. I really like the fact that each turn you are rolling for initiative. I really like games like that. All of that plays into how effective your units are. And just like the rest of the game, they use this really neat dice mechanic of different types of dice. Stress is a big factor in this game and can be affected by damage taken or command radius. Speaking of, the better you are, the more people can hear you on the tabletop. There are a whole lot of other special rules and stats for pretty much every kind of sci-fi weapon you can think of that really make this game stand out. I feel like it would run like a well-oiled machine on the tabletop and provide a fair and fun game in a really reasonable amount of time. Don't forget, you can create your own units and even make crazy stuff like this, the Kawaii Guillotine. Check it out for yourself at polyversal-game.com.